Hey everyone, Mary Lou Kaiser here. A quick heads up about the episode today. You're definitely going to want to have something to write with and a pad of paper close by to take notes because my guest teaches us how to do marketing effectively. If marketing has been the bane of your existence as a small business owner, entrepreneur, coach, consultant, author, freelancer, this episode is not to be missed. In fact, you're probably going to want to listen to it more than once. So grab your paper, grab your pen, and get ready to learn about how to do marketing that gets results. Enjoy.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's conversation on the Play Your Position podcast. I'm excited to welcome back a former guest of PYP. His name is Wayne Mullins, and Wayne is the founder of a business called Ugly Mug Marketing. And if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you probably caught his episode about a year ago. We sat down and talked about his leadership journey, how he got the call to leadership, when he decided to do the work he's doing. And he's back today because he has a new book out called Full Circle Marketing. And I'm just so excited to be talking with him today because he is going to shed some light on a topic that no matter what you do, you are going to walk away with some incredible insights and new ideas about how to make marketing work for you, your business. If you're working for a large organization, I think there's something in it for you too. So Wayne, welcome back to PYP.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, so let's just get right to it. Full Circle Marketing. What is that exactly? That's the title of your book. How did you come up with that title, and what is it? What does it mean to us?
Sure, absolutely. So the title of the book really comes from this huge myth that we as marketers, as entrepreneurs tend to believe. And that myth is simply this, that marketing's job is to get someone to the point of sale, and then marketing is done. So for us, for the business that we're in, and really kind of where the book leads us, is that is only the beginning of your marketing. We believe that marketing has two parts. Number one is your ability to attract customers. And that is the portion that most people typically think of when they think of marketing. They think of the attraction side, the advertising side. But the B part, the second part of our definition of marketing is your ability to keep customers. And so the myth is that we as entrepreneurs, as marketers tend to believe is that once we get them to that point of sale, our work is done. It's now on to the next customer. And what we've discovered, again, we've been in business. This particular company has been around now almost 13 years. And what we know to be true, and I think what any listener listening knows to be true, is this, that if you were to think about your best customers, your best clients, and where they come from, the answer is usually word of mouth or referral. And if that is true for most people, which I believe it is, if our best customers come from others who tell, their friends, their family, their relatives, whoever it may be, about our products or services, then why is it that we as entrepreneurs, we as marketers, why don't we devote some time, some attention, some marketing budget to actually converting those customers, our existing customers, into evangelists for our products, our services, and our brands?
That is such a powerful question. And as I'm listening to you talk about this quandary that so many people in my world, I know obviously in your world, face, you're right. The myth is that marketing is really about attracting new customers and then you're done if you convert them into whatever it is your product or service may be. And gosh, I can't think of one person in my fairly wide circle of former entrepreneurs, freelancers, business owners who devote any time or money to what you just described. And yet you're saying that's the linchpin.
It is. And what's so fascinating is we intuitively know these things, Mary Lou. Like, when we step back and when we analyze where did the best customers or clients come from, we know that they've been somehow referred or there's some form of connection to someone who's done business or bought our products or services in the past. And yet we get so short-sighted that we ignore this reality. And here's the thing, when we are short-sighted, what happens is we engage in short-sighted tactics or strategies. So we embrace the latest, quote unquote, greatest marketing thing that's coming down, right? So the thing that all the gurus are talking about, we run out and we gravitate to those things because it appears to be working in the moment. The problem is it works in the moment and then it no longer works. It's a short-term plan. And when our thinking is short-term, our results are always going to be short-term. But when we pivot, when we shift our thinking to say, you know what, I'm in this for the long run. I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every 3 months or every 6 months or whatever it may be. I want long-term strategic thinking. I want a system in place that is going to produce time and time again. And it's through those conversations and it's through that mentality that we literally have the power, anyone listening has the power to transform the way they market, the entire marketing approach that they take with their organization.
And so without giving away all your secrets, because obviously, team, if you're listening to this, you definitely want to get Wayne's book, and there'll be a link to grab that on his show notes here. What's an example of how do we do this? What do we do instead of chasing after the latest and greatest tactic, which is, to your point, it's incredibly common. I'm guilty as charged of thinking, oh, maybe I need to do this now, right? What do we do instead?
Sure. Yeah. If you don't mind, can I give you just kind of a broad picture of this framework, what the framework actually looks like?
Yes.
Okay.
Paint the picture.
I'm going to do my best to paint it here. I'm not a great artist, so bear with me. But if you would just think for a second of an old analog circular clock. So the clock that you used to see maybe in the schoolroom or at grandparents' house, one of the clocks with the hour hand, the minute hand, the second hand hanging up on the wall. Now, up at the 12 o'clock position, I want you to imagine erasing the number 12 and writing in the word stranger where the number 12 is. Now, over at the 3 o'clock, we're going to move over to 3 o'clock. We're going to erase the number 3 and we are going to write in the word friend. All right. So we've got stranger at 12 o'clock, friend at 3 o'clock. We're going to move to 6 o'clock and we're going to put the word customer. So erase the number 6. We're going to write in the word customer. All right. The last one is 9 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, we're going to put the word evangelist. And I use that word. There's lots of different words you can use for that. Evangelist, the way I define that is just simply someone who is so in love with your product or service or your brand that they're willing to go out and share. They're willing to go out into the world and tell others about it. So let me just briefly walk you through the way this framework works. First of all, if you were to think about that clock, and if you were to draw a line straight down the middle from top to bottom, so from the 12 o'clock spot where the strangers are, straight down to where the customers are, everything on the right-hand side of that clock is what we would call attracting. Now, this is where most people spend 99% of their budget. They spend 99% of their time is over on that right-hand side, trying to convince strangers to become friends and then friends to become customers. Now, on the other side of the clock, so everything over on the left-hand side of the clock, that is the keeping side of the equation. This is where we are guilty as marketers, as entrepreneurs, as business owners of not devoting our time and attention. So I've often asked when I share and speak with entrepreneurs, I simply ask them, if you were to pull out your profit and loss statement and go to the line item that says marketing or advertising expense, what percent of that budget, of that spend, was spent on the attracting side of the equation, and what percent was spent on the keeping side? In Mary Lou, the answer comes back over and over again that it's way over 90% gets spent on the attraction side. Right? And that's that kind of trap that you and I were just talking about that we fall in. And it's chasing the latest thing, it's chasing the next idea that's coming down from the gurus that we should be doing. Does that big, broad picture, does that make sense at this point, Mary Lou, before I dive a little bit further?
It does. No, it's very clear.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to quickly run back through how do we actually now use this in our marketing? How do we use this framework in our marketing? So step one is, out there in the world, there are all these people out there that are strangers. So a stranger isn't simply someone who doesn't know about your product or service. A stranger is someone who doesn't know about your product or service, but you believe would be better off if they did. In other words, they're your kind of ideal target audience that you want to pursue. So those are your strangers out there in the world. Now, the thing that is required, if we're going to move someone from that 12 o'clock, from the top of that clock as strangers, if we're going to move them down to friend, there are two ingredients that are needed. Number one, they have to know about us, which is super obvious. If they don't know about us, they're not going to become friends with us. And number two, they actually have to like what it is that we stand for, or what our product or service does, right? So, if you sell vegan candy bars, you're probably, your target audience, your strangers out there aren't probably people who run farms where they raise beef, right? That's probably not
probably not
your target audience. So when we get clear about who our strangers are, who those people are that would benefit from knowing us, we can then fashion those initial campaigns around simply moving people from strangers to friends. And the two key ingredients there for any campaign that we run is getting them to know about us and getting them to like our products, our service, or our organization. Is that making sense, that first step from stranger to friend? So from 12 o'clock to 3? All right. So the next campaign that we're going to set up is simply to move people from friends, from the 3 o'clock position down to the customer, to the 6 o'clock position. Now, there are two ingredients here that are needed as well. Number one is we have to further their liking of us, right? So if they like us a little bit, they're probably never going to pull out their wallet and give us money in exchange for whatever it is that we do. But if we can show them why they should like our product or service or organization more, they're much more likely to pull out the wallet. But the other key ingredient here, and this is the one that we often overlook as marketers, is trust. We have to learn to engineer trust into the marketing that's taking place. In other words, no one's going to pull out their wallet and hand you or I money if they don't believe that we're going to fulfill, that our product is going to deliver whatever it is that we're claiming that it's going to deliver. So that is how we move people from stranger to friend and then friend to customer. Now, again, this is where most people, the equation ends. We go back out there and we run out to the world and we say, okay, let's go find some more strangers and let's attempt to convert them into friends and then into customers. But we would argue that really this is the beginning of something so much more profound, something so much more powerful, and something that has the potential to become evergreen. In other words, when we devote time and attention to this keeping side of the clock, so from moving people from the 6 o'clock spot, from the customer spot, up to the 9 o'clock spot where they can become evangelists, this is where the magic happens. And this is where we have the ability as marketers to completely transform the way that we approach this thing called marketing and honestly, the entire future of our organizations.
So this completely makes sense. I'm curious, for people who have a service-based business or the kind of product that you would only buy once, does this still work for those kinds of businesses?
Sure, great question. So first of all, to answer the service-related one, what I would say is, our organization, we are in the service-based business. And, what I would say is that I don't know the length of time. It's been 8+ years. We spend 75% of our marketing budget on the keeping side of the equation. In other words, 75% of our marketing budget goes to turning our existing clients into evangelists for our brand. So for us, this is the way, and again, it's going to sound like I'm bragging here, just trying to, quote unquote, show off, but it's because of this that we've been able to work with clients, who are multiple time New York Times bestselling authors, or people who founded some of the hottest startups in Silicon Valley. It's because of this that our connections have far surpassed the little town where we reside. So the town where we're based out of, where our staff is, it's 48,000 people in the town. And that's the biggest town for about an 80-mile radius around here. But all of those connections, all of those things have come into existence because we've been serious about turning our clients into evangelists for our brands. So that's the answer for the service side. And the same is true for product side, even if it's a one-time purchase thing. If you think about some of the brands, for example, right now that are doing extremely well on, say, Instagram or any of the social media channels, what they figured out is how do we actually get people to share and talk about the product that they received from us? And I've seen lots of clever ways that companies and organizations do this, but it absolutely does work. And I think one quick thing that I would say here is that, we live in a world today where every single human being, particularly in the United States, but it's true globally as well, they have in their pocket or in their purse this thing that has now become the ability, or given us the ability, to broadcast messages to every single person that we know in an instant. So someone has a terrible experience at a restaurant, they can pull out their phone, they can leave a terrible review on Facebook or Yelp or you name the platform. They can take a picture of how disastrous the food looked or the food was or whatever it may be, all in an instant with the thing in their pocket. Now, the other side of that's true as well. If we learn to create remarkable experiences, if we learn to treat our customers in such a way that they become evangelists for us, they will use that same tool to help us broadcast our message to everyone they know.
So can you give us an example of a specific, you said the big question is, how do we get people to share and talk about our products and services? That's like that's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the shares. And I know I'll use myself as an example. On Instagram, I have an account and I really just use it to post things about my life, right? I haven't done an effective job of setting up what I guess would consider a business account where it would be business focused. So let's say you are working with a company that wants to utilize Instagram. I'd love to have a very specific example of how this works. Like, what do people do rather than just pulling out the bullhorn and saying, buy our stuff, right? Which we know doesn't work. What is one way of enticing people to spread the word?
Sure. So what I would say is that when we begin thinking about, when we kind of shift our mentality from we've converted the customer, our work is done, let's go find some more people to convert into customers. Once we've shifted that mindset, the number one ingredient that has to be true to move people from customers into evangelists for us is the word love. So they have to not just be happy with the product, they not just be happy with the level of service that we provide, but they actually have to love it. Now, here's where it gets super interesting, Mary Lou. We as business owners, as entrepreneurs, and as marketers often deceive ourselves in terms of how good of service or how well our product exceeds expectations. So Bain and Company, a big consulting firm, they went out around and surveyed almost 4,000 small businesses in the United States. And they went to the owners of these companies and they gave them 5 options with regard to customer service. They said, which of these 5 describes the way your company provides service to the customers? And the top one was superior service. Then it was great service. Then it was, good service. Then it was average service. And then it was terrible service. Well, 80% of the business owners said that we are at the top. We provide superior service time in and time out to our customers. And Bain & Company, whoever's doing the research there says, that seems really, really high. So we want to follow this study up with another one. So they went back and got permission from a big portion of those companies to go actually survey some of their customers. And when they surveyed those same customers, the customers of those same companies that they just asked that question to, only 8% of those customers agreed that those companies provide superior service. So we have to get clear on, number one, what does a reasonable customer have the right to expect in this exchange? In other words, if we're using a product as the example, what does a reasonable customer have the right to expect when they purchase our product? Now, we make assumptions, right? What we love to do with our clients is we say, okay, let's take out a sheet of paper and we're going to make 3 columns. In the middle column, we're going to write, what do they actually expect? Like, what are the expectations? On the far right side, the far right column, we're going to write exceed expectations. And then on the left column, we're going to say, not hit or not meet expectations. And then what we have them do is we have them go through and we say, okay, every point of interaction from the time they place the order or from the time they pick up the phone and call to order, whatever the situation may be, each step along the way, what does a reasonable person have the right to expect for that particular thing that just took place? So we have them go down that list and they list out what are the expectations. So if it's, when someone goes to our store online and they're going to order, they expect the page to load in 5 seconds or less. So we write that down. When they go to the checkout screen, they expect there to be no more than 2 screens to check out before the order is complete. They expect the package to arrive within a week or whatever these things may be. Then what we have them do is fill out the right column. What would it actually look like if we exceeded expectations? And then this is the one where we get the most resistance. What does it actually look like when we don't meet those expectations? Now, with this one simple sheet of paper in their hands, you can actually do a litmus test with customers coming through your order process. And what we know to be true, because we've done this with lots of clients, is that more often than not, we are not living up to even the basic level of expectations that our customers expect. So until we get that right, we have no hope of creating this love for our products and services. Now, I'm gonna answer that. I know it's a long-winded derail sidetrack to your question, but let me give you just a couple of very specific things that people can do, and I have seen done very successfully. So number one, in the order itself, so in the box, if it's a physical thing arriving at the door, some form of postcard that rewards them that says, share this on social media, tag us or use this hashtag, and we will send you a certain gift or you will receive X% off your next purchase. We've seen that work very successfully. Others would be things that they can actually give to other people. So including additional things in the box that are things that are shareable. We've seen that work really well for clients. Does that sort of answer the question? Does that give you at least a couple of examples?
Yes, it's really interesting. I think that exercise that you just described, it obviously could work for any business. And it's also, as much as I don't want to be not surprised about the results of the second survey, I also am a realist and think, yeah, I can see that the businesses that were first surveyed, oh yeah, we give, we over deliver, we're great. And then customers say, well, not so fast.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And it gives a person or a business reason to pause and say, wow, where am I falling short?
Yeah.
And even an exercise for business owners who may be listening, I think a great exercise would be to list out, what do you think you deliver? In a perfect world, given the business that you're in, whether it's a service-based business or a product-based business, what is it that you think you're delivering? And list all that out and then measure it against what's really happening. Because I guarantee you, I'm thinking of myself, I'm thinking of people I'm in mastermind groups with. There are gaps. There are gaps in what we're able to do. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, it goes back to this old adage that, most of your listeners have probably heard at some point, which is this, that your brand is what others think about you, not what you think about yourself. And all too often when we get in this whole marketing space, the advertising space, what we start doing is we start imposing what we believe to be true about ourselves over maybe what the reality actually is, right? So, another thing that we talk about when we have these conversations with clients is this, that we live in a skeptical world, a skeptical society. So customers out there would rather trust strangers they've never met than to trust you or I as business owners. In other words, I can stand up here, all day and talk about how wonderful, how great our company is and how, we do all these fabulous things, but there's going to be skepticism when I'm the one up here doing that. On the other hand, if you heard that same thing from 2 or 3 or 4 different people who don't work here, who aren't associated with our company, you're much more likely to believe any one of them than believe me as someone who's got some, incentive or some motive to try to persuade you that we're so great.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Which brings up a new question. One of the suggestions that all business owners get is, you need to get testimonies on your website. You want to have those client testimonials, and yet those can be fabricated. How important? I guess I'm an unusual person because, for example, I was on a website the other day, and it's a SaaS company, and I'm evaluating bringing on something of this kind to help my business. And I'm looking at what their so-called client testimonials say, and they're extremely vague. They don't really give me any sense of whether or not this product helped them convert people. It was more of just a glossy overview. And I thought, I don't know if that made me lower my trust in this particular thing. Now, I know not everybody is going to dig down that deep and really pay attention, but I do. Can you talk to us about the use of testimonials? How powerful are they on that keeping side of the clock that you described, or are they more an attraction kind of a thing?
Sure. Yeah. No, great question. Because one of the things that you just illustrated in that point was, if we think back to the clock analogy, so you are in the space, you're looking for some form of software to help with a function of your business, it sounds like. And it sounds like you have moved yourself, whether, the company knows this or not. Any of the companies out there know this or not, but you've gone from a stranger, so someone out here who owns a business who really maybe wasn't looking for whatever this particular type of software does. You've now become a quote unquote friend with probably a few different companies out there, meaning you kind of like what they're doing. You like the product or the software that they provide. You know a little bit about them, but you're now in the process of moving from a friend into a customer. And the number one ingredient in that step, moving from the 3 o'clock spot down to that 6 o'clock spot, is trust. That is the number one ingredient. And my contention, my argument would be, what are the things that we can do to help show trust, to help showcase trust, to help show that our product, our service, our brand will deliver on whatever we say it's going to deliver on. One slight side note here is this, that when you think about your business, and we kind of think, if you've heard the term degrees of separation. So the further out from our immediate circle we move, the more degrees of separation there are between us and the person. And what is true in marketing every single time is that the amount of trust it takes for you or I to sell our product or service to a friend is very, very little, right? Because the trust is already implied. They know us. They've known us for years. They trust that, even though they've never purchased anything from us, they trust that because of who we are, because of what we stand for, whatever it may be, that our product or service is going to do what we say it's going to do. So the trust is there. But when we begin moving out, stepping out degrees of separation, we must be intentional as marketers to ensure that the trust that we're communicating is broadening, it's getting deeper. In other words, we're putting more time and effort into things that build trust along the way. So to answer the question for you, like what I think may have helped your case would have been if there were specific case studies based on your business from that software. In other words, here's someone in your industry who uses the product. Here's the challenges they faced before they had the software. Here's how the software actually went in terms of implementing it into the business. And then here's the outcome since then. So trust is given, but we are still skeptical because we're trying to analyze, but will this work for me? Is this product right for me? And so I think the more that we can dive into, the more that we're in tune with the things that people are cynical or skeptical about, the more we can engineer those things into the process that we've created, into the marketing that we've created.
Love that question. Will this work for me? That is what every potential customer or client is asking themselves, whether overtly or subconsciously. There is that question in play. And, I'm thinking out loud here. Again, I run in a circle with a lot of solopreneurs, people who have a service-based business. It might be in IT, it might be in finances, it might be just in coaching. And the perennial question is, how do I find new people? While knowing that the new people that you might find are asking themselves, will so-and-so service work for me, is a great starting point. You could actually build out a bunch of content around addressing that question. Have you worked with businesses that have done that? And if so, did it work?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like what you're just talking about, there's a phrase that we love to use is this: where trust goes, money flows. Where trust goes, money flows. And
I love it.
The way I would answer that question or kind of speak into that question is this, that, even for us, so our company is now, I mentioned earlier, we're coming up on 13 years. And as we have moved further and further out, in other words, our reach has gone further and further away, what has happened is that the amount of trust required for people to write us, big checks, we're doing expensive work, the amount of trust required has grown significantly. And so even for us, we've had to go back to the drawing board. We've had to say, okay, before we could get by with some testimonials, or we could get by with, just a few little excerpts from people talking about us. But as we move further away, more degrees of separation away, what are the things that need to be in place so that we can communicate trust? And what I would say is this. So two specific examples from my actual company, for our company. Number one is the use of case studies. So because of what we provide, people are looking for, just like you, Mary Lou, we're looking for that particular software to say, but will this work for me? And so through case studies, we're able to show the different types of clients that we've worked for, the challenges, and how we attempt to solve those challenges that they face. The other thing that I think is so important, and this is extremely important for everyone listening when it comes to your marketing and your messaging, we don't have to pretend to be perfect. Right? No matter the product, no matter the service, we don't have to pretend to be perfect. And I would go as far as arguing that people would rather us be very truthful and upfront about the potential downsides than to try to brush over them. Because when we brush over them, it causes them to want to dig and find, like, this sounds too good to be true. What's missing? Why does it sound so good? Like, this can't be right. And so for us, one of the things we've had to do, I'll give you an example from our website side, is from the very beginning, we tell people what are going to be the most painful parts of the process, right? What's going to be
Yes.
the pain points as we go through this. And we want to, number one, point those things out, because what it does is immediately it removes the defensiveness, right? It removes kind of this thing of like, there's got to be something here that's too good to be true. I'm digging for it. And instead it says, no, we're going to tell you all the things that are going to be obstacles, that are going to be painful. We're going to tell you those things now, but we're also going to show you how we're going to help you work through these pain points in the journey and in the process.
That is it's an unbelievably powerful position or stand. But to be able to be brave enough to basically announce to potential clients or customers, hey, this is what this is what you're in for. No surprises here. And I think that comes from experience. I think of a couple of my peers who have been in business for 3 to 5 years. You've learned along that journey of those early days, this is what happens about this point. I call them mileposts, right? At milepost 10, this is about what's going to happen because you've seen it enough times, right? And at milepost 15, here's what you can expect. But there's power in that. It's kind of like ziplining, right? Like, if you've never gone ziplining before, you're going to probably read about ziplining. You're going to watch videos of ziplining just so you're not completely caught off guard when you get up on that first platform and they strap you in and they're like, here you go.
Yeah, shove you off the platform.
Yeah, and they shove you off the platform and you're dangling off of this wire. And I mean, if you have any fears at all of heights, if you have vertigo, if you have any, you need to be contained, that's not going to work for you that well.
Yeah. You sound like, Mary Lou, that you may have a story here, a little bit deeper behind this.
Oh my gosh. It's true. I mean, I went ziplining for the first time in 2017, so about 4 years ago. And I was really excited because I had watched videos online. But once I got up onto that platform, I did have that, my knees were knocking. I had that lump in my throat, like I'm going to be dangling here from this hook, this pulley that's going down. And you sign you sign the waiver, what you're getting into. But I had done enough preparation, so it was more thrilling than it was scary.
Yeah.
And I think that analogy works for any kind of business venture that has a lot at stake. Which I know that's the kind of work you do, Wayne, is these are not small contracts that you're dealing with. These are large, potentially business-changing events when you work with clients. But it isn't always going to go smoothly. There will be hiccups along the way.
Yeah, and what I would say, just 2 other quick examples would be, if you think about Apple, for example, when you buy an iPhone or you buy AirPods or whatever you're buying, we understand that there's a risk, there's a chance that the thing that we're buying may have a technical issue. It may not work right. It may malfunction. But Apple has also done such a brilliant job of saying, look, in the event that these things happen, we have these things called Apple stores We have the Genius Bar. We have Apple Care. We have all of these things to help mitigate those fears. So when you're spending $1,000 on a phone, like you want to know what's going to happen in the event something does happen to it. The other example would just simply be Amazon. So Amazon, in terms of their return policy, they kind of pioneered this where it's pretty much, if you're unsatisfied almost for any reason, send the thing back. I mean, obviously there's parameters around their return policy, but they've mitigated the risk in the mind. So the thing for you and I as marketers to think about is in engineering trust, how can we engineer trust in such a way that we also show how risk is being mitigated? In other words, in the event something does go wrong, how are we going to handle that? How are we going to take care of that? Because we live in a world where things are going to happen, right? And things are going to malfunction. Every once in a while, there's going to be a product for whatever reason that doesn't function the way it's supposed to function. And that's part of life. Like we're all human. We all understand that. And so people don't necessarily expect perfection, but they do want to know what's going to happen in the event that they're on the bad end of receiving a product that doesn't function or work the way it should.
Yes. As far as delivering a service goes, I've been in the service-based industry for quite some time, and I've seen how different people present to potential clients, in the event of ... It's hard when you have a physical product that you can take into a Genius Bar, for example, your iPhone or your earbuds, and saying, these aren't working. Why isn't this working? Then there's that troubleshooting. With a service-based kind of a business, there are certain things where if you've devoted time to helping somebody build something, for example, like a website, you know about that firsthand, you can't go back and say, I can give you back this time, or, money has been exchanged. So how do you address that with your service-based companies? Because I know it's one thing to say, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee on this course, or if you're, as long as you can prove to us that you did the steps, like that's been baked in, because otherwise people can just decide, they never did it. They never opened the book. They never opened the course. Well, they want their money back. Well, listen, you didn't do anything. So how do you know it didn't work for you?
Yeah.
So that's where this line gets a little bit dicey.
Yeah. So for us, I'm going to give you real world examples on how we do it as a service-based business. So we have kind of 3 different sides to the business. 2 of them are on the marketing side. One's on the website side. So on the marketing side, the way we help mitigate risk when people are making these big decisions, some of those decisions are literally to hand over all of their marketing to us. We tell them this. We say, okay, we're not asking you to sign a 12-month or a 2-year or 6-month contract. All we're asking for, give us 2 months. Within 2 months, if you don't feel it's right, if we don't feel it's right, we will, number one, if we don't feel it's right, we will let you know. Like, here's why we're concerned. Here's the areas of concern. But if you have that same feeling, like something's not right here, we're not going to hold you to a contract. We're not going to ask you to sign a contract. We want you to walk away. So we approach it with kind of that open hand concept. In other words, we're going to pour ourselves into this for 2 months. Yes, they're paying for it. Yes, they're investing. And yes, they're going to be doing some work, giving us things we need, et cetera. But what we do is we shorten the downside, or we make the downside as small as possible. In other words, I'm not committing to 12 months of this. I'm giving 2 months. And even that 2 months, there's necessarily no contract that gets signed. We're just asking them for a verbal commitment that they're going to give us 2 months. In other words, it's going to take us a little time to get this rolling, right? To make the changes we need to make. On the website side, it's a bit different for that, because although everything we do is custom built, custom designed, it's still in many aspects, it's still this product, right? It's this thing that we're building.
You get at the end, right? You walk away with a thing.
Right. You walk away with this thing and it's yours. But number one is we provide all of our clients with a 90-day warranty from the time the website goes live. So anything happens to the website whatsoever from a technical functionality standpoint, it's taken care of, no questions asked. also during that 90-day period, if there's tweaks, adjustments, minor things you want done, not talking about redesigning the whole site, but minor things you want done, we take care of that. No questions asked, no fee, no anything. So we're implementing those things in process, and we're communicating those things from the very beginning so that we're, again, marginalizing that risk. We're building trust into the process, trust into the equation that we're doing.
Makes sense. On the front end, those expectations are made clear, the way you work made clear. How did you guys land on 2 months versus, say, a month or 90 days?
Sure. So for us, 1 month is too short because we're typically coming in and taking over all the marketing for people, for organizations. And it really takes us roughly, the time varies based on the client, but it takes us a few weeks to get in and really figure out what is in place, what is actually going on, what's working, what's not working. And then it takes us the rest of that time to do things that are actually going to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
We always look for what we call low-hanging fruit, right? What are the things that we can go in and quickly do that have been neglected, have been overlooked, where we can get some quick wins for the client and show them those wins. And, what I can say is that mentality of, we structured the business in such a way that the success of us as a company hinges on the success of the client. In other words, without the contracts in place, if we're not getting results for them, there's no reason for them to keep paying us month in and month out. And so in a lot of aspects, it holds us accountable to what matters most, and that is to the results for our clients.
Mm-hmm. That's a great philosophy.
It's a daunting philosophy to live by.
It is.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's a philosophy that very few of our competitors, contemporaries use and follow because it is so difficult to do that month in and month out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And yet the fact that you're still in business 13 years later, that you have a long laundry list of satisfied clients who are not just former customers, but are the evangelists that you're teaching us here about today says a lot. I was having a conversation earlier today with a man who, he just came out with a book about leadership from the standpoint of handing over control. Like when you're done with a role, or you're phasing out, maybe you're moving up in an organization or you're moving out of an organization. As parents, you're launching your children into the world. You're done with the day-to-day. They're heading off to college, or they're entering the armed forces, or they're just going to work. How do we do that? And he has to your point about the power of a framework. So I love so much this clock that you described for us earlier today, Wayne, because it really puts into perspective, oh, that's what I'm not doing, right? Or, oh, I'm really good over here, right? It validates what we're already doing well. And it also opens up that wormhole of, oh boy, I am not doing this at all. And I guarantee you, most listeners of this podcast are in that 99% that you talked about. And there might be one or two who are raising their hands going, no, I'm doing that 1%, because they either figured it out or they know you.
No.
Oh my. So your book is coming out. It will be available. It's on Amazon. And what do you hope this book will do for readers?
Yeah, my hope, Mary Lou, is simply this, that the readers of this book would finally come to the realization that marketing does not have to be complicated, complex, nor expensive. That when you take a strategic approach, when you understand just a few basic frameworks, that the results that you're getting from your marketing will be completely different from what you're used to today. I always say that your marketing system is perfectly designed for the results you're currently getting. So if you're getting lackluster or terrible or no results, there's a marketing system in place that is producing those things. So instead of complaining and whining and being upset about the results, right? Which, look, don't get me wrong, I'm certainly guilty of that. We go set up something and we run it and then it doesn't work, and then we're upset and we complain about, well, Facebook ads don't work anymore because they've changed all the stuff or whatever it may be. Instead, we have to go back and say, okay, that result came from the system. What in our system is broken? What in our system allowed this result to come out? And when we take that approach, when we take that strategic approach, it removes the emotion. It removes us blaming a platform or blaming a guru or blaming the latest hack, marketing hack that everyone's talking about. And instead it says, no, this is the system. The results are here. They're very clear. We can see those results. They're either good, they're bad, they're mediocre, whatever they may be. But if we want them to be better, we need to evaluate the system that's producing those and make adjustments to that system.
Mm-hmm. So team, I don't know I hope you're listening to this and just listening, and you'll go back and listen to this again and take some notes after buying Wayne's book, because I haven't had a conversation like this about marketing ever. I mean, you've obviously come up with something that is working. It is not necessarily what people want to hear, but to your point, marketing doesn't have to be complicated. And sometimes it just takes taking a step or two back and evaluating objectively without, like you said, no emotion. This is not personal. It's often there's a missing piece or several missing pieces in the way that something is being approached. I'm curious. You just brought up, don't blame the platform, don't blame and that's where most people go, oh, such and such platform changed the algorithm, therefore it doesn't work anymore. But interestingly enough, when I look at this clock, I drew it as you were describing it, nowhere on here does it say that it is platform dependent.
Right.
Yeah. It's not platform dependent.
No, not at all. And, the book goes in, obviously, it's tough to articulate some of this. The book has some illustrations that kind of walk you through each of these things.
Right.
And what I would say is that when you understand this framework, it doesn't matter the platform, like you just said, Mary Lou, you can literally take this framework, you can apply it to direct mail, you can apply it to Facebook, you can apply it to search engine optimization. You can literally apply this framework to any marketing thing that you want to do. And the beauty of this framework is what I just talked about a second ago, was it gives you the ability to quickly identify, here's where the problem is. We're not getting people to move from stranger to friend, or we're not getting them to move from friend to customer, or you know what? We haven't devoted any time, effort, or attention into actually turning our customers into evangelists. Let's focus on that for a while. Let's devote some time there.
Mm-hmm. Boy, I tell you, I mean, you've just handed people the keys to the kingdom if they're willing to do the work. And obviously your book is designed for a DIY approach for, hey, small business owner, here you go, read this, employ these ideas and see what happens, right? Certainly people who are like, this is way too much. Wayne, can you help us? You're available for working with businesses to design, to go in and look under the hood, so to speak. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. But, Mary Lou, at the end of the day, what I would say is, sure, we would love clients. We love working with new people. But at the end of the day, my sincere hope is that this book gives people the ability to do what we do without having to pay people to do it, right? I hope that this book opens up, the people who read it opens up their eyes to the possibility that, maybe they've just been kind of under this illusion that the next marketing hack, the next cool platform that comes out is going to be the one that solves all this for them. And instead they say, you know what, if I do just take this strategic approach, I can expect strategic long-term results from my efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think it also is a reminder that every business needs to know what it is they do really, really well? And is that what they want to continue to be doing? Because I think there's a lot of confusion with business owners about what exactly is it that they're selling? How is it, what problems do they help people solve? To your point about jumping on the latest bandwagon about, here's the marketing tactic of the day or the week. I think that I see that a lot with business owners, people who've chosen to be entrepreneurs or freelancers or just a small business owner. They like some aspect of work maybe they did when they were employed. I use the example of cupcakes, okay, which is, so someone loves to bake cupcakes and everybody raves about the cupcakes and they, you should start a business. They think, okay, great, I'll start a business. And then they get in and they realize what they love doing is baking the cupcakes. They don't love any other part of the business. And marketing and having a website or at least some social presence, some kind of branding. I mean, all those little pieces that make up business today have to be done in a way that helps build trust. Is, if I'm going to love these, if I love these cupcakes and I want cupcakes every week, you better be consistent with getting those, letting me know, are there certain flavors? Do you only offer them at certain times? I mean, there's so many different factors. So I think your book can help people also look at their business and say, is this what we really want to be doing? Do we have too many offers? Do we have not enough offers? That's the impression I'm getting. I see it being valuable in that respect as well.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, I believe it. I believe it will be, and that it is that. I think you touched on something there, which is just that in so many ways, I think it was Michael Gerber who had this quote that, if our businesses are sloppy, if our businesses are chaotic, that is merely a reflection of us as leaders. And my hope is that this just kind of strips away some of the maybe biases or lenses, I don't know if that's the right word, but lenses
yeah.
that we are looking through that may be slightly jaded, right? Mm-hmm. We've over time to have the certain bent against marketing or a bent against trying new things. And instead that this not only opens up our eyes about marketing, but it calls us to think, okay, if it's true here, what other areas, like you were just saying, might I be holding on to things that aren't true or aren't helpful or aren't valid for where I'm trying to go with my business?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Wayne, this sounds amazing. And again, team, to get Wayne's book, just poke the link in the show notes right here, wherever you're listening. It'll be right there. It'll be easy to get. And what is where's your home base online, Wayne? Just say it out loud for people to hear.
Sure. Regarding the book, the simplest place to go for that is just yourfullcirclemarketing.com, yourfullcirclemarketing.com. And all the info about the book is there.
Great. And then as far as your primary business, yep. What is that?
uglymugmarketing.com. And all of the social links, phone numbers, email addresses, all of that's on that site as well.
Yes. And again, team, I'll put a link to the conversation that Wayne and I had about a year ago about his business, Ugly Mug Marketing, how that name came to be and his journey into building a company. And it's a great conversation. So there'll be a link to that as well. And Wayne, I've really enjoyed getting into your world. Congratulations on writing a book that sounds like it's really going to help a lot of people. And I am an evangelist, so I will be spreading the word. Obviously, people who listen to this podcast, but I'm just going to tell people in my circle that this is a book they need to add to their shelf, because I do know I've had a gazillion conversations with people that marketing is either completely foreign, they don't even know where to begin, and this could be a perfect place to start. And then there are those who've tried everything under the sun and still feel like nothing works.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Mary Lou. I've enjoyed the conversation. It was great catching up, and it's hard to believe that it's been a year since we last chatted. But as always, thank you so much.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year.
Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.